On today's show, we have fitness influencer and former reality TV star, Casey Cohen. I am your quarantined host, living my dream all alone. And this is Building Friendships. So here we are. I am physically all alone, no guest in my apartment today, but we do have a guest remotely stuck in her apartment. Today's guest, she's a fitness influencer, former Bravo reality TV star, Miss Casey Cohen.
Hello.
There she is. Yeah, so like it's going to cut back and forth with who's talking because we're using Zoom. I hope we don't get Zoom bombed because that
would suck.
Terrible. Have you heard about those?
Yeah, but I haven't had them. I refuse to do the workouts that have Zoom.
That would be a nightmare. That people are just popping in. There was like Nazis who popped in and were posting swastikas in Jewish meetings. There were a lot of dicks popping up on screen. It's weird. But yeah, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Let's get into what we're doing. So. You're a fitness influencer. You can catch her at Casey L. Cohen on Instagram. I'm going to get into that because I need help. I'm struggling. I just put up caution tape around my fridge. So we're going to have to talk about how to not gain 800 pounds while living in quarantine. But I figured the perfect set for her would be the, there we go.
Set.
Yeah, it's the Heart Lake
like gym center, Heart Lake Sports Center, sorry.
There we go. I mean, perfect fit. I'm doing something a little bit different this season. So normally I would build a set, whatever we're doing. I would just build one set. But what I'm doing this season is a bunch of custom stuff. So this is just an example of something I customized over here. And I'm also in the middle of building a comic book shop and an arcade, which you can see the blueprint is kind of down here. We're getting there, but we're gonna build a lot of props on my end while she builds the sports complex, and we'll see how far we get. I don't think we're finishing it on either end, but it'll be interesting to see where we get. Also, every episode I give away something to our viewers. Today, I figured. In 1928, they released Steamboat Willie and Minnie Mouse. So they have two minifigures here. That's 10 years after the last pandemic, so I figured it was fitting. 1918, 1928. We'll be giving this away. Just comment in the comment section, and we're going to pick someone random to give these away to. So let's get into it. So let's start from the beginning. You born and raised on Long Island?
Born and raised on Long Island. I moved with my mom and my dad at the time to LA for like a couple of years, and then they got divorced and we came back, my mom and I, to Long Island. And I grew up there, so a little hiatus. Came back and then grew up in Jericho, went to high school there, and was always super into art. Since I was like 2 years old. My grandfather actually built a toy company in his basement with his bare hands, like super creative family. My uncle and my cousins wrote screenplays. They wrote Ghost and Stuart Little too. So I come from a really creative like background. So my mom had me in like every class known to man to like see what my talent was. And she realized very quickly it was art. So I went to art school on top of high school. So I always had that extra homework, I guess you would say. And she was always pushing me. So I wound up going to art school on top of high school, then went to NYU and studied there studio art, which I actually really loved. And while I was there, I, again, like needed something else. So I stumbled upon this place called Butter on Lafayette Street. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but like it was like the biggest nightclub ever. Downstairs on Monday nights, every celebrity and their mother would go. It was the hottest hottest party on Monday nights. I was 19 when I started there as a maitre d', like host, runner, and I learned every aspect of the business. And then they brought me into the party. I was fortunate enough to be brought down as a waitress, actually, a bottle waitress. And I was like about 21 at the time, and I stayed there for almost 10, like 9, 10 years. But they also brought me to their place called One Oak, which is a world-renowned brand. And I started there as one of the first waitresses and was with that company for about 15 years. Took a 4-year break while I was there to be a co-founder of a hospitality tech startup company, and went back after, that wasn't really my passion. I went back, but while I was there, I worked with like these amazing girls who all had similar drive to me. We would go to work and work from like 10 o'clock at night until like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then go home, shower, and go to school. So I would go get my master's degree right after I went to sleep at like 5 a.m. and go right to school. Or I would, teach kids, which it's a little crazy. But I found that if you really wanted something, you had to work for it. You had to earn it instead of just having things handed to you, which brings me to the show.
Great. Let's stop for a second because, all right, we'll talk about the show in a second, especially if I've already dropped something. Especially the fact that, like, okay, we're going to talk about the show. It was based around a bunch of Jewish girls on Long Island. You come from a Jewish family and your parents pushed you to an art school? That is unheard of.
I come from a Jewish family, except that my mom remarried somebody who wasn't Jewish. So we celebrated Christmas as well. And my grandfather created a toy company that was Christmas based. So they were like there was this toy company that was like the sleeping Santas, and like he was the voice behind that, and the trees, like the Christmas trees that would whistle, like my grandfather invented all that. So I guess it was skewed. We would celebrate all holidays. We looked at it more of like a time to bring everybody together instead of focusing on the religious aspect of it. I was bat mitzvahed, but again, like even for Passover this year, we didn't do anything. Not because I don't want to, it's just because my family isn't very religious.
No, I was just amazed. Religion or not, like I don't know any Jewish. I have no Jewish friends who were not tried to push toward, who their parents did not try to push them towards like law or medical or one of those fields. Like the idea of your parents supporting you while you want to do something creative is unheard of across like the people I grew up with.
I have an amazing mother. She is very into the arts and music, and
Yeah.
my mom's whole side is artists, sculptors, screenwriters. So it's accepted.
Did having a mother that was creative and supportive of the arts, or having a family, did that make you did that put pressure on you to like, were you extra critical of yourself because of the amount of creativity in your family?
No, I used my art to like escape the reality of my household almost, because I didn't really get along with my stepdad, and he wanted me to be an attorney. He kept saying like, you have to be an attorney, you have to be a doctor, like you
There
have
we
to do
go.
that. And I was like, that's not who I am. That's not what's going to happen. I was taking voice lessons. I always wanted to be on TV. I pushed my mom to like take me into the city to go to modeling agencies. Like I always wanted to be in front of the camera. I would hand him like napkins and be like, here's my autograph. You're going to save this one day when I become famous. And he used to laugh, but I was like, I don't want to be famous to be famous. I want to actually inspire people and change people's lives. That's why I want to be on TV, and I need that platform or some sort of platform to do that. So I would always joke with him about it. And my mom just accepted it. She knew I would never, like, not that I'm not smart enough or anybody's not smart enough to go to law school. I just didn't want to do that. I always said that there's a way to make money. There's a way to be successful if you think outside of the box. You don't have to have this like, you know, structural job that people or society like thinks is what you're supposed to have. There's plenty of successful people that don't do ordinary things.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an interesting point that I don't think enough people realize. Like, this industry comes with a lot of people who think that they are owed something, and it's always there are a lot of people who are always complaining about not getting certain things, and you find out it's because they're not doing the work for it. Like, you don't have to do half the stuff that you do on your Instagram to promote yourself, but you do it because you know that's what needs to get done in order to build that reputation, build the following, which we'll get to in a second. But it's just interesting to me how there's a big misconception in the industry where you just like, oh, my father did this, or my cousin did this, or I know people who just happen to become Instagram famous overnight, so I can just try and do the same thing. And it's like that. And it's like, no, if you work for it, it pays off 90% of the time, I would say.
You definitely have to work for it. Nothing's handed to you. Like even having connections that you do have might get you the intro, but if you don't have the talent and the work ethic behind you, you're going to fail regardless. There's plenty of people that I know and I can get to certain people, but again, like if you don't have that drive and if you're not willing to put in the work, like exactly what you're saying, there's no reason to even knock on that door.
Yeah, no, and that's there is that other perception of you have to know somebody. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you can get yourself to know. People should know you. You should be doing enough that people know about you. You shouldn't have to know other people in order to get to where you need to be. And I think that's something that this industry can teach you very quickly. I think a few years in this industry of not really getting where you feel like you deserve to be can really teach you about actually working for everything you earn. That sort of brings me to the TV show, because again, I'm fascinated by everything in entertainment, and one of those things happens to be like people in reality TV and the perception versus the reality and the production of it, the overproduction sometimes. So you were on Princesses Long Island. How many years ago was this? 9?
It was, I don't remember when, like the year that it was filmed. It was like 2013, 2014, I want to say. Around that time, I was 27, 28. It was a very interesting experience. I will say that. People always ask me like why I signed on to it or why you would do reality show. My mom was actually really excited about it, and my grandparents were super excited about it. Obviously my stepdad wasn't. And some of my friends weren't either, but it was something that in my heart I knew I needed to do. I thought that I could use the platform for my artwork. I thought that I would be able to change people's perceptions on being an artist and showing like my creativity on that side of it. I wasn't expecting it to be as crazy as it was. Putting you in.
Sorry, how'd you get picked for it? So was this a show that was pitched to the network that from someone on the cast, or was the network producing a show called Princesses where they wanted to find a group of Jewish?
It was a working name. There was a working name before that. But they had pitched a show where they were looking for 6 girls that all kind of like knew each other, that were friends and had drama. I just happened to know like 2 or 3 of them. Like I knew one of them very, very well. I knew another one that I got to meet, Ashley, who I still really care about. And then there was a girl that on the show that actually did sleep with my boyfriend when I was like 15 years old. And we had this whole thing where like being 15, you look in hindsight, you're like, oh my God, like my whole world's ending. But later on, it didn't affect me because of what she did to me. It affected me because my parents had gotten divorced because of like a similar reason.
Yeah.
And it brought up those emotions. It wasn't really about like her. And it was a lot of like bottled up things that I didn't deal with that I was constantly talking about on the show. So when you're constantly talking about something, it heightens it, and it brings it to a point where you're like, am I still talking about this like 5-10 years later? Like I don't even care about this anymore. I'm trying to focus on something else. But that's my reality now, talking about this. So I have to deal with what I'm talking about. And I got to confront her and talk to her about it. I mean, God willing, some of these people are still living back in the past, and still haven't really like changed, but that's on them. But it's interesting to see that, like, you know, karma does take a toll. You can't really treat people, you know, poorly and expect them to want to be friends with you. I just remember her saying like to me a lot, like, I want to be your friend. I want to be your friend. I'm like, why do I even want to be your friend? I still don't even want to be your friend. Like,
Yeah.
I wish you the best, but like, you know, why do I even want to be your friend? Like, I have great friends.
It also says a lot about a person who like just doesn't get it. Like,
they don't get, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't get it. And
just don't
I
get
also
it.
had an interesting time on it because I was still working while I was filming. So imagine you're going to sleep at 5-6 in the morning, you're waking up, sometimes you're doing your hair and makeup yourself. Sometimes I had a best friend who was doing it for me, and then I would go and shoot and I'd be exhausted. And a lot of the times I wouldn't say anything because I was just like, is this insane what's being like talked about in front of me, or am I just really tired? like is it, what's reality is like is true.
Yeah.
But again, like I did it for different reasons, and it was hard for me also to watch people that didn't have any drive and didn't like had mommy and daddy pay for stuff, because I didn't even have that.
Yeah.
It was more like, Casey, I'll help you and show you and help you, but like if you really want to do X, Y, and Z, you should go get a job and figure out how hard it is to make that.
Yeah.
So just an interesting, different upbringing.
So what was the production like for you? Like, I know you mentioned like just a lack of sleep, and partially that's due to just you had multiple jobs while you were doing it. You were still in school, right?
Lack of sleep. I didn't drink at all. No alcohol, nothing. Like on when we were filming, after filming, and I was working in a club, mind you. But I wanted to be as clear-headed as possible for production. I didn't want anything skewing my emotions or the way I was reacting to anything.
But that's what they're looking for. That's why you're smart, because that's exactly what they were looking for. They were probably like, oh, a girl's working at the club till 2 a.m., 4 a.m. Let's get her on the show.
Yeah, no. And I don't, you know, it was interesting because I was just like, I'm not going to drink. And also, I have my SAG card, so I'm a trained actor. I've been on camera a lot, like almost 20 years, since I was a child. I know exactly what production is looking for and what they're looking for me to react to, how to look on camera. These are all things that I learned being in the industry and being, you know, trained by like certain people like Susan Batson, like who's the most well-renowned acting coach in the world for Nicole Kidman. You think that I'm gonna not know what to do on a camera?
Yeah.
So
did you overall, would you rate it as like an experience you enjoyed, or?
Yeah, I actually, people ask me if I would do it again, and I say absolutely.
See, and that's interesting. I know a lot of people who have done reality TV that would never do it again.
It was exhausting, but
Yeah.
I think like the reason why it's scary and people don't want to do it is because they're scared on how they're going to be edited or like how they're going to be perceived to the public. But like for me, it's like what you see is what you get. So when you meet me, you're going to be like, this person is not that way. It's almost impossible to edit somebody into a character that they're not.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we were talking the other day. Like, you did not come off like, after that show, I can say, oh, she like, you seemed like one of the down to earth people on the show that they constantly use to level off the other characters. Like, I remember, because I used to live tweet this show, I just remember some of your eye rolls like you used to roll your eyes in a way where I was like, how do her eyes not get stuck like that? Because you're reacting to the stuff that's actually going on around you, and the viewer's reacting to it in a negative way. You're sort of reacting in a negative way, like, what is going on? I just remember really like clearly that you came off, and I think you said her name was Joey, came off
Joey.
As like the two,
very similar. Yeah,
the ones that balanced out the chaos on the show, which to me, that makes sense that you would do it again. I don't think you came off poorly at all. My fear
no,
with
people actually didn't. It's funny that you say that, and I appreciate you giving me that feedback, but like people would actually be like, she's not funny, like she doesn't. I'm like, how could I be funny? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you're not sitting at this table. You're not sitting at this table watching these people yell at each other, like downing alcohol. And I'm like, is this a joke? Like, this is a joke, right? Like, I have to roll my eyes. I have to start like, I'm actually laughing internally because I can't believe that you're like shaking your head or like twitching or like doing all these weird things. And I'm the one sitting there being like, is this fucking for real? Like, is anybody else seeing what's going on?
What would you say is something that you filmed that didn't make it into the show?
Chanel, there was a girl on the show named Chanel, and her and Ashley wanted to put this like art gallery show together for me. And it was something I was actually really excited about. And we filmed this whole show, and my grandparents were there, and my mom was there, and I got to show all my artwork. I had never really done one at NYU because I graduated early, and I never had that like experience. So they wanted to do that for me, which I like was really grateful for, and it never aired. So I'm thinking, oh yay, I can't wait for episode 8. Like, hopefully it's in episode 8. It never came. It never came.
They didn't
So I
give
was like,
it
oh wow, that's
did they let you watch it ahead of time before they aired it?
Yeah, so we got the episode a couple of days before, so I would like brace myself for like what was going to happen, which almost made it worse because I had like anticipation for like days to come to be like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is going to air. And then I'd be like, Mom, you have no idea what you're going to see. Like, just be prepared for this.
That would probably be the worst part for me. Even when I'm filming something, when I'm filming the web series, because we have such a low budget, I run the camera as I'm writing, directing. I actually film the thing. And when I get home, I have to watch the footage. I get terrified of doing that, and I'm not even on camera. Like, I'm not actually acting. So I can't imagine knowing you filmed something, who knows how long ago. You don't know.
Yeah, it was like months ago.
What?
Months, like months.
I didn't even remember some of the stuff you filmed. And then it arrives in the mail, and you now have to like brace yourself because you don't know what the fuck is on that tape.
And the craziest parts of the craziest parts about it were certain things that you filmed were also out of order.
Oh.
So like you would think that something was going in a sequence. Your reality is different from what you're actually watching, right? So you had to be really careful with, again, like what you are comfortable with sharing. I think that goes with anything, even on social media. Like, there's certain things that you need to keep private. There are certain things that you need to, like, you know, you might know Casey Cohen as fitness star or whatever you want to say, influencer or like athlete or reality star, but do you really know Casey Cohen, right? So there's like a difference between what my friends know, what the public knows, but that's important. I think that's really important.
So first of all, so Chanel did an episode, I forgot which, I think episode 4 or 3, but she's good at producing. So I would like, as a creative, like I've been to some of her events. I would have loved to see that art show thing that they just cut because it probably didn't have enough drama for them or for whatever reason.
Yeah, it didn't have enough drama. I was super upset.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, that's the industry. You'll shoot something and be very excited about it, and before you know it, it's just cut because they're looking for something specific and it doesn't have that. And you think about all the money that goes into it, flushed right down the toilet.
Yeah, but you know what? We got a lot of feedback on that show that people actually wished it was a little bit more normal. I do too. Like the
normal
Hills
in what sense?
What?
In what sense do you mean?
Like the Hills wasn't so crazy. Like there wasn't all this like craziness. There was drama between. there was drama between their relationships and who was dating who, or like, maybe there was some girl fights, but it wasn't like to the level of like, Jewish organizations getting involved. It was just like completely out of control at one point where I was just like, what is going on?
Yeah. I mean, and that's something when they first, like, that was one of those things, and it happens now. People will see something and they'll be like, oh, you have to comment on this, do live commentary, do a live video. Right now I'm doing it for Tiger King, but when someone sent me the trailer for this and the link, I was like, oh, I know what they're going for, and this is going to backfire on producers. It didn't backfire too badly, but yeah, there were Jewish organizations that were not thrilled with the portrayal. And in my mind, I'm like, well, it's called Princesses. What did you expect? Like, that's not something you say as a compliment in most situations.
I didn't even know it was called that until like way after too. So I would be doing press for things and then they would bring that up. And I'd be like, what? Like, I'm not a princess. Like, I work all night. Right. So like, it was almost like, I was like, why are you calling it that? And they wanted it to be like a franchise, kind of similar to like Housewives of New York, like Princesses of LA, Princesses of here. So they were anticipating it to be huge, which it was. It was actually like we had 2 million viewers, like the first episode or something crazy like that. And I remember, it was one of the first shows ever to never have to shoot a pilot. We shot like 13 episodes straight off the bat.
Wow. Well, you actually just made a very interesting point in that you sometimes don't know the title. There's a working title, especially with reality shows, that you might not find out until after until after you've already shot it. So they could have called it Assholes of Long Island, and you wouldn't have known because you're already there. And that's the worst part. Like, a good example recently is if you watch Love is Blind, everybody refers to it as The Experiment because that was the working title. You'll hear nobody on that show refer to the show as Love is Blind. I don't even think Nick Lachey says it in the first episode. I think they keep calling it The Experiment because they probably didn't have a title for it in the beginning. They had a similar show early 2000s on ABC called Dating in the Dark, where similar concept, you were in the same room, but it was pitch black, so you didn't know who you were talking to. Same concept, but there's a wall. Love is Blind makes sense. They didn't have that name at the beginning. So these people didn't know what show they were on. They just knew they were on a dating show. Could have been called Assholes Dating. They wouldn't have known. So that's it. And that's it. That's something they put in the contract. So it's a pretty bold move.
It's a risk. It's definitely, that's why I think people are scared to sign on to shows. It was definitely a risk. I did sign for like multiple seasons, which I was pretty bummed about too, because, I had figured it would be going on for a really long time. But it's okay. I mean, it brought me to, the next place and the next place. But again, like if certain things were different, maybe it would have continued.
So you love entertainment, you love the arts, but your passion is fitness. So that was something wasn't brought up on the show at all, but having seen where you are now, where did that come from? Was that something that you were doing on the side that nobody really was exposed to, or was it just social media blew up, you found a way to reach people? Talk me into that.
So when I was working at night, I had like 2 or 3 cell phones because I gave my phone number to clients, and then I had my own personal phone number, and then like I just separated it.
Yeah, no, that's smart.
Work and personal, which most people did. And where I worked was one of the hottest places, if not today, it's still known as that, One Oak, and the Butter Group brand was so high profile that if my bosses needed anything, I would answer right away. I had that sense of urgency anytime, like in the middle of the night, I would always answer. That's just like how nightlife works. You have to be on your phone all the time. Yeah. So I started actually getting into SoulCycle when I worked at night. A lot of people didn't know about it, but I was going there like literally 2 or 3 times a day. I had 45 minutes just to myself. I had to leave my phone in the locker. It was like the way for me to like put it away and not be on my phone and not have that anxiety of answering. And I'm cycling for like 5 or 6 years. Like I'm at like 2,400 classes, to be honest with you. I love it. I do 2 to 3 classes a day plus like a Rumble or a Barry's or a Y7 or something else of that nature. But people know that I'm active, where like it's normal for me. Like when I put it up, how many outfit changes have I had? Like it's actually normal for me to change 3 or 4 times a day because I love fitness, and I still work at night now, but I still like genuinely, I love being in the fitness classes. I love that 45 minutes to myself. And I just love the whole experience of it.
So where did you decide, okay, I love fitness, I love what I'm doing with the classes, let me share what I'm doing with other people?
It became more of like a focal point when I was in my startup. I had left Butter Group for a brief period of time, where one of my best friends that I had met there brought me in as one of the co-founders of this hospitality startup tech company called Solido, and we were building a restaurant operating system. And I was the like expert in the industry, that I was brought in to like talk about floor plans and how the operations really worked in the restaurant setting as well as the nightclub setting, bar. So we could build the functionality of it. And my release from all of the, I don't know if you're aware, but like building a startup is insane. Like it's all day long. You actually start to feel crazy. You don't have a break. Like if you're not working, like your business thrives off that, right? So that release came from fitness. And I would just, again, like when I was filming, I was doing 2 or 3 classes a day also. And I would cry in those classes because I couldn't even like talk to anybody about like what I was filming, right? Like talking about my parents' divorce. I would walk into these classes and I would use that class as like a safe space. So that's when it really started. My love for it has always been there. I played sports my whole life. But because I have a master's degree in teaching for art, I wanted eventually like transition that ability into fitness, that skill set.
And I guess you just figured, listen, you have a lot of followers, you have a platform, on Instagram, on all different social media. This is a good time to just sort of show people what you're doing, and I mean, help where you can. How are you adjusting to this situation? We're in quarantine now. You don't have those classes. You're still stuck at, like, I'm still stuck at home with whatever thoughts I had, that I can't really go out into the world and go for dinner with friends. How are you adjusting to that in this whole thing?
We're fortunate that we have FaceTime. So I've been FaceTiming my family like every day. My grandparents are both alive, knock on wood. They're in their 90s. And, they give me hope every day. They lived through the Great Depression, World War II. They're super strong, and fully functioning. So they give me that little extra push to just stay calm and, focus on what I need to focus on. But nothing's really changed in the fitness world for me because they're offering all these classes online. So it's almost better for me. I get to jump in between multiple people's classes and I change just to keep my normal routine, which I think is kind of funny. But I have so much activewear, whether it be that I've been working with brands or things that I love. And I love to dress up. So I love entertainment and TV and stuff like that. So that kind of like translates. And I feel like I just pretend in my mind, hey, I'm going to another class, because that's what I would be doing normally.
And that's actually something I was going to ask you about, because like if you follow Casey, you'll see she'll post it. I think it's the exact same photo, and I had to look at a few of them to be like, did she actually move, or is she just using an app that like changes your outfit? It's like the exact same photo.
I do it on purpose. You know why? Because people are like, she's in the mirror, like she's in a different outfit. Like, well, it's almost like thing.
You're doing multiple outfits a day. I was like, does she take a few of them and post them all in one day? You're going from class to class.
But
Like
it's so easy now. I don't have to leave
that
my
is,
house. I just have to change the Instagram channel, like who I'm following. So I just look and I'm like, okay, this person I'm obsessed with. Like I love Isaac Boots, who happens to be training like Kelly Ripa and Lisa Rinna and like all
yeah.
these amazing people are in these classes. And I've known him for a while, but like now I'm like, great, I get to access him every day at 11 a.m. That's awesome. Now, then I get to go on Women's Health and do this. And like, it's really cool. There's Peloton apps. Like there's so many different apps you can try that are new and like nobody sees you either. And like I hate the dance classes. They're not like my favorite because I
Yeah.
always don't know the choreography and I feel like I'm making a fool out of myself. But I'm like, maybe I can try this class in my house and nobody's seeing me.
Do you have any like favorites you want to recommend? I had to put caution tape up. You can see it on my Instagram. I put it over the food in my kitchen because I'm getting out of hand. I have like 3 more chins than I had in the beginning of March. So like, do you have anything you would recommend for people who don't do classes? Like, is that just the best way to do this at this point? Just
No, everybody's different. Like some of my friends are having like I think it's more of a personality type, right? It's not about the classes, it's about personality type. Like I basically was an only child even though I had step siblings and half siblings, but like in my mind my mom and my dad only had me. So I'm an only child, right? I like to be alone a lot. I actually don't, even though I love the group fitness aspect and I want to teach eventually, but I like to be alone. So it doesn't affect me. Whereas like some people are having a lot of like a very difficult time transitioning into being alone. So that's more of the issue.
yeah,
Whereas like if you want to go run outside, that's fine. Or like setting up a schedule for yourself, I would say is really important. Being consistent is really, really important. That's why I take those pictures because I'm like, at least I'm keeping
yeah.
consistent with what I do normally.
And for that's actually really good for your followers. I think this is a time where people look for normalcy anywhere. It's something that you're not getting outside. You can't really go outside. So I find myself watching things that make me feel like things are somewhat normal. So for example, all the late night talk show hosts are still doing their show from home, but they're doing their show. So to see their faces doing their monologue, doing their segments, it makes me feel good. And I think that's something that you're doing with your Instagram, where you're keeping your things consistent. You're doing the things you were doing before this situation. My biggest thing is I love being home. Don't get me wrong, but I have my routine at the gym. I've never done home, like this is a whole new world for me. Like I was never a person who goes to the gym. Up until last year, I never went to the gym. Then I got into this routine at the gym, and now I'm one of those people who I'm like, I can't believe I can't go to the gym. What can I do instead? I don't have an elliptical here. I don't have a treadmill here. I don't have any of the
That's
that
that
you.
yeah, no, you're touching on a really good point. Like that's the hardest part is the cardio aspect of it. um but again, you could go running outside. Like I have a
Yeah,
bike. Like, there's different things you can do. I actually have like a tremendous amount of fitness supplies, as I call them, in my house.
that
I had
makes
to
sense.
order like a couple of things, but I recently moved into my apartment like almost a year ago, and I have an outside deck, which is private for myself. So I have my own outdoor space, which I found really important. In my last apartment, I didn't have that, and I was like, oh, I just need an outside, like something. And I have a roof, and those small things make a huge difference for me because I almost feel like I'm leaving my house.
Yeah. No, I think I definitely you're in legit quarantine. You're not leaving the house at all, right?
No, I have it like I'm ordering Whole Foods like all the time. I have a Jewish mother, so she's making me a little neurotic.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm making myself neurotic. But again, like I'm doing what I can do to, stay home and wipe down everything that gets delivered. Or, I'm grateful that I even have that ability to do that. But it's scary.
Yeah, no, this whole thing is just insane. It makes you actually stop and think about things you don't even think about, like you've never thought about before, because you never thought something like this could actually happen.
No, you don't. And I was reading a lot about it because even though it looks like everything's normal, like everybody has their own thing, I was experiencing like a little bit more anxiety than normal, only because I had been doing so much cardio and then almost like weaning off of it. It was causing me to have like a little bit more of like a panic attack situation. So when you say like, what can people do? Like transitioning even from, I was doing too much, right? And
Yeah.
then now I'm not doing almost enough, even though it looks like I'm doing a lot. I was doing different things. So it's getting your body and your mind to adjust to that, the new normal.
Yeah, I think that's the most difficult part at this point. It's realizing that this probably is the new normal, at least some aspects of it. Like I think when we get back to normal, quarantine and lockdown is lifted, people are going to be way more, and this is going to benefit you. People are going to be way more aware of fitness, health, just overall cleanliness. I think the people who are getting through this, who aren't getting sick or who are getting sick and recovering after 3-4 days, those are the ones who kept themselves healthy. Like the ones whose lungs were constantly being exercised, who were going to the gym, who were eating the right things. So I think there's going to be a big change in the way people live their normal lives. I think handshaking is gone for good. I
Oh
never
yeah.
understood it. I'm sort of a germaphobe, so it was never a thing for me. But yeah, it's crazy what's going on, and I guess we just got to get through it at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, but again, like keeping a good schedule, like eating well, like making sure that you have like your meals set up or like remembering to eat, like those little things, making your bed every day, like it's so silly, but at the same time, like making yourself even feel good for a girl. Like I would suggest like taking a shower, blowing out your hair, putting your makeup on, getting dressed. Like those little small things can really change the way you feel about yourself.
I was going to ask you that if you were doing things like that, like doing your makeup every day. I see a lot of pictures now where people, not that they have to be in makeup, a lot of people that I know, a lot of celebrities are posting pictures without makeup, and I'm like, yeah, but don't you want to feel a little bit normal? Like, eh.
Really. Um, yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like when when I'm on social media, I tend to just like, it's funny because when I started acting, I started acting school when I was going to NYU. I had this like situation where they'd be like, let's do a private moment. And I took off my makeup and I started to cry. And I don't know why, but it's just like something about me that I was like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. It was more of like a self-esteem issue. So no matter what, like I always try to like put myself together because that makes me feel good. It's something that I know that I need to do, whether that be wearing a cool outfit or doing my nails or like doing my makeup. But it was something that I knew early on about myself that if I put myself together and I showcase that side, I feel okay. Right. So I don't know. Everybody's different, but that definitely works for me. I'd rather
Yeah.
not be like seen where I don't feel good about myself because that's not going to help.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And like I'm one of those people who's like, I get it. A girl, a guy, they don't have to be made up all the time.
Not
But
all.
when I there's no better feeling than when I get out of a shower, when whether I needed to take it or not, like if I'm not going anywhere but I get out of a shower, I just feel like it's a clean start. Like just everything feels fresh and like, okay, let's go about our day. We've just started a new day. I'm sure there are people who just take showers once or twice a week through this whole thing. And
Yeah, which is
like,
crazy to me because I even like to touch on filming again. Like I always had to feel like confident in those situations because I didn't want to be taken off guard. And that to me is like playing your part, playing your role. But that's also in life too. I've been noticing that if I go and do these workouts, I need to have certain things set up and in the right way so I can film it and like I'm still trying to be as normal as possible.
No, that makes sense. And I think that's what a lot of people have to focus on now. I think the focus needs to be on the things you can control. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that's completely out of your control. The disease is out of control. The government restrictions are out of your control. The only thing you can control is what you're eating, what you're doing in your free time, how you're keeping your normalcy on track. And I'm noticing a lot of people doing it. I think what you said is true. You need to find a routine and you need to stick with it. And yeah, it'll become your new normal for a while, but it will not, it can't hurt the situation where just giving up on everything is just going to make you feel progressively worse.
Here, I'm just going to pick up my dog for a second because she's barking.
All right, well,
yeah, no, that's the best. I've noticed a lot of people that I speak to, influencer, blogger type people, when I have chats with them, they say keeping a schedule is the most important. I also, it's funny. I also I have an Alexa, so I was messing around with it, but I found that if I start to freak out or anything of that sort, because it almost feels like you're so confined into a space, I'll make it into some sort of meditation spa music where I feel like I'm in a spa, because I'm how do I transport myself into a relaxation mode where I have a lavender diffuser and I have the spa music playing, and my friends will call me and they'll laugh, but I'll be that makes me feel calm.
Yeah, no, I mean I get that reaction about Lego. I think people don't, and more you're seeing people start to get into the whole Lego thing. Like Ellen is doing it now. Daniel Radcliffe is doing it now. It's very relaxing and it clears your mind. You're too busy looking for small pieces to think about anything, to worry about anything. So I'm sounding like I'm being sponsored by Lego. But this legitimately, when I'm having a day and I'm I don't want to deal with anything, this whole wall behind me is what I do. And people laugh because it is such a ridiculous thing that not a lot of people do, but you have to find that thing that clears your mind and sets you back to neutral. And yeah, for you, it's working out. For you, it's it's the sound of the room, what's going on around you. For me, it's this. You have to find your own thing and just power through it, because we're going to be inside for a little longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Nothing's worse than being in there with your own thoughts.
For sure.
How far did you get with the Lego? Were you even doing it?
No, I built my own weird playset.
Oh my God, you were building though.
I was building, but I didn't follow the directions. I made my own.
That's the best thing about Lego. You do what you want. Of course, I built something food related. So the brick show shop has cool custom Lego stuff. So I built a Dippin' Dots set.
That's so cool.
And a few more arcade games for the arcade I'm building, which will be in another episode, I'm sure. All right, so yeah, we can end it there. Thank you again, Casey. Remember, follow her, Casey L. Cohen, on Instagram. Comment below to win 2 of the Lego Disney minifigures from 10 years after the last pandemic. And that's it.